and West Virginia. Top 5 game changers in the portal. These are guys that are sitting around that are these are the ones who are causing the most buzz and getting the most phone calls among the people in there. And look, it's crazy right now anyway. Look, one university has to fill 50 spots, so they're calling about everybody who's in there that they didn't already put in there. So they're 50 guys that they won't call, but all the rest they're calling. Number 5. From that university, Colorado, Montana Lemonius Craig, wide receiver. This one was really surprising because most people thought he would stick around, but for whatever reason, he has jumped into the portal seeking a different opportunity. Very curious is because wide receiver seems to be the position that is most easily movable in the portal to me.
Had a big spring game, had a big 90-something yard, whatever, long touchdown pass from Shedeur Sanders, and like 2 days later, he's in the portal. It kind of surprised everybody. Most everybody else that's been in the portal for Colorado, not all of them are because of what Dion and the staff has suggested. There's some that don't like perhaps what they see or how they felt, and some that also just want a new, refreshing start. And Lemonious Craig might be one of those.
Yeah, I'm curious about it. I mean, there's Florida State got one Casey Roddick at guard, and that was way early on. So before the spring game even happened, he left as soon as Dion got there. And look, they were 1-11 last year, but of the few guys that they wanted to keep, he was actually one of them. So this is one of the more surprising ones. And the only reason I have him here at 5 really is because he's on a 1-11 team last year. So while he might be really good, and it might not have been his issue, still, of the ones here, I'm going to say 5. Number 4.
Looks like he's going to Auburn if you had to read the Twitter tea leaves. I mean, there's a lot of momentum there for Auburn. But, yeah, you're right. Interesting guy to be in the portal and not somebody who necessarily Dion, made the move on because he's getting a lot of credit for basically everything, you know. And it's like, no, there's some guys that are like, I don't want to play for Dion, and there is that too. But how many guys did Matt Rule get rid of when he got to Baylor? Now, granted, it was a different situation.
It was a slower drip too, but yeah.
Well, and they were 1-11 because he basically broke it down
to
be in that as much as anything else. Whereas Colorado's coming off of 1-11. But, yeah, I mean, he booted some guys off, but I don't feel like there was that much attrition. Now, granted, they had a team that had won Big 12 titles a couple years before, so that's probably why. Whereas with Colorado, they haven't won anything in a while.
There was attrition as soon as they beat, Boise State in the bowl game. And then, I would think that there was probably a culture shock for some. He asked some to leave, and I'm sure some didn't want to be there. Yeah,
but it wasn't double digits or anything crazy.
I would say no more than 10 to 15 at the most, if that.
Maybe over 2 years too. Not just in one. Number 4, Jyaire Shorter from North Texas did not
from Killeen.
Yeah, Jyaire Shorter. He would have had he had enough catches to do it. Been the leader in yards per reception last year in the NCAA. We'll see on Gio Shorter. I put him up a little bit higher because I do think that he is going to be a game change for somebody and has kind of proven that he can do some things. Not sure where the tea leaves are saying he's going, but this is an interesting one to watch in someone who's moving from the group of 5 to a power 5.
First time I ever saw him was we were down in Belton covering that 11-man or whatever it was, the shootout. They had the 7-on-7 shootout. Craig used to do the showdown there. We did it one year. And I said, who is that? He's like, isn't he, I think, 6'4", 6'5", very tall. That's not really?
He's a little shorter than that.
Okay. Very tall, lanky, has some speed. Not comparing him to Quentin Johnston, but kind of reminded me of that. And a young man from Ellison High School.
Yeah, no, he's more like 6'2"-ish. Yeah, he's not that tall, but I mean 6'2" is a good height, don't get me wrong. It's just when you start getting into like 6'4", then you're talking about some pretty long wide receivers, so not far off though. And yeah, he's a great player. I mean, I don't know who Eric Morris has left there at this point. It feels like every North Texas player that's worth a damn has been picked up by somebody in the transfer portal, doesn't it?
I
mean,
it does.
I'm a little, I mean, I know that they're going to try to move up that level. But if I had to stay and play for Eric Morris, especially on offense, I wouldn't be mad about that.
No, I wouldn't be mad about it, but
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I get it. I get why they're doing it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too shy from sticking around, but when you got these other opportunities, and I think Auburn, another team or another player you can link them to based on just searching around on Twitter. So maybe they're going to double dip on this list. We'll see. But, yeah, he's a good player. I mean, I look at North Texas's – if I don't watch a little bit of them, I see at least their box scores every single week, and they've had some great skill guys over the years, and he's one of them. He's a good player. He'll make somebody better. Yeah.
Number 3, Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Michigan State, just came off a visit to Tallahassee. He is going to Ole Miss tomorrow. He is 6'4", big matchup issue kind of a guy. Curious to see where he winds up. He is going to he's going to cash in on some NIL. Very curious to see where he goes. If he goes to FSU, he's not the number 1 receiver there, but he's in a group of guys that are just going to be matchup nightmares with Johnny Wilson, who most people saw at the end of last year, Kentron Portier, who's coming up really well, and then a couple of big tight ends. So
I thought that Florida State was flawless right now. They're ready to win the national title.
I mean, I hope so, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. They've lost some guys in the portal, and
right.
Some of the ones that Colorado didn't want to see them go, but they did. But so we'll see. I mean, he's not going to be one of those guys who rolls into a city and is bowled over. He's going to take some and sit out for the best offer. Leaving Michigan State, who last week was just punched in the gut with losing one of their better offensive weapons and potentially their starting quarterback,
yep.
Although that gap had been closed. And now Peyton Thorne's on his way to Auburn, and Keon Coleman is on his way to somewhere else.
Potentially Auburn as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's Ole Miss, Florida State. There's a number of schools, but, yeah, he's a guy who's become highly coveted for sure, and definitely could be a name we say a lot next year. And Florida State would make a ton of sense. I mean, Auburn would make a ton of sense. I mean, Auburn is going to be basically all over this list, I guess. But, yeah, he's got a few teams after him.
Yep. Number 2, coming off an injury, a player Craig really enjoys a lot, Alton McCaskill out of Houston. A lot of saying Colorado here, but I think he's probably going to be a little bit like some of these other guys in Keon Coleman and take as many visits as.
I thought he would have already been at Colorado. I think there was somebody that covers Houston that mentioned look for Colorado, but maybe that's again unfair to Colorado.
It was Bruce Feldman.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I had my whole diatribe was because they had people get mad that it's like, why are you picking on Dion? It's like, why are you defending Dion? I mean, and it wasn't an attack on Dion, but it was like this dude jumps in the portal after spring. Not some schlub who's like second or third string, or and I don't mean schlub that way, but not some dude who's not getting playing time. Not some dude who they won't, put NIL towards.
He's the most important player on their offense.
The most important freaking player on the team. After spring ball, decides to just out of complete nowhere up and move. And it's like, the hell? And then the first tweet that comes out is Bruce Feldman, who we know is well connected. And the only school he mentioned specifically is watch Dion in Colorado here. And that's all I was pointing out was like, man, that's kind of shady. And Dion's got his little defenders or whatever. But, yeah, I mean, I think that was almost too obvious that if he'd have done that, it would have been like OC. Yeah. So, I don't know. I know Florida's, contacted him and offered him as well. I haven't kept track with all of the others. But, yeah, he's going to be great wherever he goes, so long as he can remain healthy coming off of that knee injury. Otherwise, he would have had a huge year last year for Houston. And, look, he might have been inevitable to go into the portal anyways because he's going to be, a star player. But he would be great for Colorado. He'd be great for, I think, whoever gets him. Again, just so long as that knee holds up, and it should. No reason to believe that it won't.
And hell of a spring. I thought Dana Holgerson handled that story.
He handled that beautifully.
Incredibly well. Yeah.
You know who we are not hearing about? This probably because Dion is overtaken all the headlines in other schools to Auburn. But we're not hearing Miami as much in the transfer portal this year. Although I wouldn't be surprised to see them land some of these guys eventually, but we're not hearing Miami around as much. I think that's because they actually do really like their last 2 recruiting classes quite a bit and may not have as many spots as people think are there at Miami. And Alton McCaskill would be an upgrade there. Right? He's an upgrade for almost anybody but about 3 teams in the country. And then even then it might be a lateral move. Number 1, Zakhari Franklin, UTSA. Oregon feels like where it's pointing for him, but he is going to have an opportunity, and this is the first one. And we talked to Jeff Trailer there all the time, and he's been able to ward it off for the most part. But you even tell the tone in his voice when he talked about it. It's kind of inevitable. Nobody can keep everybody anymore.
No,
nobody can.
No.
You know, Georgia loses players. Alabama loses players. UTSA not losing the guys from that group of players that they had was such an outlier mathematically that it didn't. This was bound to happen. It stinks for them. It stinks for everybody who's coming back to that team because this was the best player in his conference last year and might be the best player had he come back, the best player in the conference this year. That's how good he is. I'm curious to see where he goes.
Well,
his old offensive coordinator is at Oregon now.
Yes, exactly.
So.
That's the will. That's why he got involved in the Novosad conversations too. And if he ends up at Oregon, there's the connection from UTSA when he was the quarterbacks coach and co-offensive coordinator.
They'll be fine at UTSA. I mean, they got a number of weapons. I mean, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, and it's been a good player for them for a while. But I think that they'll find their way, around his loss. They've got Joshua Cephas is their second leading returner who's going to be back this year amongst some other guys. So he'll be a big loss for them, but I don't know. I just got faith Jeff Traylor's going to find some wide receivers. And they got Frank Harris back again. So if you've got a 17th-year quarterback, I mean, hopefully he can bring some young receivers on a little bit better than a guy who's maybe thrown into the fire and, like a redshirt sophomore or something. So I think, having a steady-handed quarterback, having a guy like Cephas, among others, back, that they should be okay. But, I can't blame him. He had a huge year. He's going and making some money off of it and, getting what's due to him. And, I'm sure it was a little bit of a heartbreak, but I think that the people down in San Antonio probably understand as well that, the opportunities that are out there for him. So,
all right. By the way, prayers to
Great
those
player.
in Allen, Texas after what happened.